everyone, welcome back. So as you may remember, your homework assignment for last time was to write down a word that describes yourself and then have an example that represents that description of you on a daily basis. Would anyone like to share what their homework was? Laura?
I said that I was studious because I studied for around 2 hours each day.
Great. So Nicole, what part of Laura's example shows that she's studious?
That she studies.
Yeah, exactly. And you used the background information that Laura presented in order to come to that conclusion. That leads us to what our student learning outcomes is for today, which is to be able to analyze different aspects of a character, whether it's adjectives about them, other characters' descriptions of them, or their behaviors, in order to come to the traits that those characters have. So why is this important? It's actually extremely relevant in our everyday lives. For example, somebody doesn't come up to you on the street and say, "I'm funny, laugh at me." If they did, that'd be a little weird, But the thing is you have to observe how they act in everyday situations. For example, if they're surrounded by a lot of people that are laughing at them and they tell jokes regularly, then you can come to the conclusion that they're funny. Or if you're looking at political candidates and those politicians or candidates have a little bit of a sketchy past where they're more interested in embezzlement or other, scandalous affairs, that could lead you to believe that that candidate is distrustworthy. So, how do we come to the conclusions of characteristic traits in text? Well, we can look at physical features like how the character is dressed, how they speak, and their tone of voice, who they talk to, their actions, and also how they surround themselves. Would anybody like to tell me the difference between emotional traits and character traits? Caitlin?
I think character traits are more like the quality of a person, whereas emotional response would be more how they react to certain situations.
Exactly. Yeah, so when we're looking at traits, it's important to understand that this is more about what's going inside the character, like their personality. It's also much more consistent. For example, if a character is being bullied in a text and they turn the other cheek, this can show that the character has a more mature trait. An emotional response, like Caitlin said, is dependent on the situation they're in or the outside forces that are acting on them. So for example, if a character's dog died and they cry about it, it doesn't necessarily mean that they're depressed. It just means that they're sad in that moment because their fuzzy, furry little friend can't play fetch with them anymore. So we're going to do a stop and jot. So what I would like you to do is recall what we just discussed about traits. And I want you to write it down in your own words what that definition is. So do you guys have a pretty good understanding then of what traits are? Or do you have any questions about them? No?
No questions.
All right. So now, one thing that we're going to look at is how do you track traits in books. One thing you can do is create a chart. So on one side, you can have the actions and behaviors, and on the other, the trait that you come to the conclusion to. The next thing that we're going to do, though, is apply this to the text, Walk 2 Moons. And as you guys know, it's about a young girl named Sal, who's a Native American, who is traveling cross country with her grandparents to her mother's resting place. So we're going to analyze this quote. So would anybody like to read the quote out loud?
I'll read it. Graham and Gramps knew that I wanted to see Mama, but that I was afraid to. But I had decided to go, and I would go, and I had to be there by my mother's birthday.
Very good, thank you. So, if I were to read this and I would just stop right here, I could see that Sal herself says that she's afraid. That could make me think that her trait is cowardly. But would anybody like to read from the part where it says but to birthday and say how this could change? Laura?
But I had decided to go, and I would go, and I had to be there by my mother's birthday.
Thank you. What part of that stands out to you the most to determine Sal's true traits?
When she says that I had decided to go and I would go, is showing more of a brave characteristic rather than cowardly.
Exactly. Very good.
When reading text, don't make mistakes. That all characters are the same. Beware of how they act and speak. Then you'll see that Texas.